Good morning, everybody. Hope you're doing well. Just waiting for Pam to get on so we can get started. See if I send another. No, I sent it. There she is.
Okay. Good morning.
Good morning. Um, so yesterday kind of we just did this impromptu type. Just kind of
Right.
talking about what's going on, and then I don't know, it just kind of went on a tangent to other places or whatever. Um,
It's all about collective, I guess, how we've
yeah,
been
it is.
impacting that wave.
It's like everybody just get on and let's talk about whatever. But no, and it is all consciousness, right? We all have our ways of perceiving the world, um, but today we want to talk about altered states of consciousness, which there's a distinction and what does that mean? And how do you even get to a space where you can experience altered states of consciousness? And there's many, many ways. Many
Mm,
that you can.
absolutely.
There's, some people, obviously the psychedelics, we could talk about our own little experiences with that, but you can do, the shrooms, right? Psilocybin,
Mm.
ayahuasca, peyote. I just heard of something new that they do in Africa. I can't remember. My friend was talking about it, and I can't remember the name of it. He was thinking about doing that. There's um, what other kind of plant medicine is there? It's kind of what I could think of now.
Right,
Or
we're talking
natural
about that.
medicine. I mean, there's
Yeah.
there's also marijuana, like, that
Yeah.
could potentially get you there. I know that messes me up.
Yeah,
Uh,
absolutely.
I go on
It
bad
can
trips with marijuana, though.
I think when it's not in excess, yeah, it can definitely take you if you're not used to it. But definitely like DMT, I had a beautiful
Uh,
experience with that. Um,
LSD. That's right, forgot
yeah,
that.
yeah, LSD. There's lots of stuff there. But even outside of like the psychedelics, like you said, there's, the flow states of yoga, there's breath work. Um, ice baths because I think that incorporates like the breath work and the calming that could probably take people out. I mean, there's tantric practices. Um, there's, meditation. So there's lots of ways. And then for me, it's definitely like in journaling, I will kind of do automatic writing as well as just naturally. I feel like astrologically, there's been some events that have helped shift me into like an altered state and channel and get downloads and yeah, really cool experiences.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah, I think with the altered states of consciousness, it got such a huge topic because there's just so
Yeah.
many ways that you can reach it.
Dream
Part of it,
state is an altered state.
yeah, the dream state is an altered state of
Yep.
consciousness as well. So there's like many, many ways. And why do people seek altered states of consciousness? Like, what is the purpose and intention behind it? I think is the big question, right? Why do we as humans, and not even humans, there's animals, right? I think even monkeys,
Mm,
will will eat medicines that make them a little bit loopy and whatnot.
right.
Um, but
Dolphins with the puffer fish.
dolphins with the puffer fish, we're you know what I mean? We're seeking this, like, altered states of consciousness, which is kind of funny. The dolphins with the puffer for dolphins. Um, that we get kind of like, "Woo, what's going on?" Right? And we start to see the world through a different lens. But it's definitely you can do it even through drumming ceremony, and to talk about,
Mhm.
like, how since yesterday was, like, Indigenous Day, which I found out, um, some states are still not celebrating it as celebrating yesterday as Indigenous Day. They still celebrate Columbus Day. So,
Oh, wow.
pretty interesting, yeah, which was interesting. But in the drumming ceremonies, right, the drums themselves have the ability to put you in an altered state of consciousness, and I think that was, like, a big cool aha moment for me, especially when we're taking shamanic traditions.
Mhm.
Um, you know, how he was talking about they took away the drums from these natives because of that, because they were able to reach these states without having to um take any of the plant medicine to begin with. So
Yeah.
that's isn't that cool? Like, that was cool, like, you can take a drum, have a ceremony, a drumming ceremony, and reach these states without having to take any kind of, um, any kind of what do you call it? Like, not a drug, I don't wanna say a drug because I don't really call it drugs, but any plant medicine or
Right.
being to alter the state that's outside of you, right? And
Yeah.
drum itself will put you in that space. I went to a drumming ceremony the other day and I was like, you know, I'm gonna drum until I fly high to the sky or whatever. Um, I never got to the altered state, but I did understand how the drums can have impact and effect on you because it's like the heartbeat, right? It's like it matches your heartbeat, the rhythms and stuff like that, and then I can see how when people have their eyes closed and they're just continuing that thing, how it can start to put you in this trance, and then how it
Yeah.
can maybe open up your third eye, if you will, and connect you into these other places. So, pretty awesome, and it was pretty cool. But yeah, there are other ways and, like mushrooms, which I think are legal in is it Colorado, if I'm correct? I can't even remember. But that's starting to get legalized, right? The use of
Yeah.
psilocybin and mushrooms, which I think is awesome. I've done my own fun time with mushrooms. And, really ceremonially,
Yes.
right? So and I know that you have your, ceremonies that you do. Do you wanna share, like, what that is? And, because the sacredness of it, it's not about just for me, it's not just about, "Oh, I'm gonna go do all this stuff," and, you know, it really has this purpose and meaning for me spiritually, so it's not like something I would do all the time. I mean,
Right.
for me it's something that I would do in a sacred space, and that's not to say that everybody has to. This is just my personal way that I respect the plant, I respect
Right.
nature, what it has to offer, and not to abuse it or overuse it, right? Because
Right.
too much excess is never good. But
Exactly.
tell us about the ceremony. I mean, you've done it more than I have, the
Um,
ceremonial.
yeah. So yeah, we have like weekends that are really awesome in the healing community that I found. And we definitely like kind of just come together, and it is a very safe space. So before we go into ceremony, we definitely like smudge and kind of cleanse our energies, and just maybe like set intentions on an individual level, right? Because we're all there to do
Mm,
work realistically.
mhm,
Like we're going to be laying on a mat and pretty much, going into a journey. So it's not like everybody's just hanging out, getting, like you said, like in excess, kind of messed up, right? Because, ooh, it just feels good.
mhm,
um,
mhm,
it's like, okay, we know we have shadow work to do. We know we have wounds, from our life cycles and situations that really need attention and healing. So I think that's like the biggest, kind of intention, because then you're trusting in the medicine to guide you. And so you're not trying to like distract yourself from anything that's, unpleasant, but rather it's like this acceptance and this embracing. Like I know the medicine has something it wants me to navigate, and so you just kind of surrender. And, some journeys have been way easier because I felt like I haven't had to focus on healing. There was one time where I just really wanted to embrace my creativity. And we had like a paint room, all set up with,
mm,
with the lighting and the tapestries. So it was a really cool space. And, And yeah, it's like in that space, I could just paint and I could just, you know, be more active, compared to like a mat where you're just on this journey. And it's the same thing. We use intentional music like drumming and like shamanic kind of songs, that really set the tone as well, because the music, from my experiences, can really kind of interfere with the
Mm.
journey as well. Like if you're not in a good space and the music is way too much, that can really be hard on people.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
yeah, so like, so it is this set and setting, and there was a time where it got heavy for a minute, or you see other people, you know, that it's heavy on them and they're crying or they're struggling to get through it. So there's assistance there, you know, whether it's smudging them with Palo Santo or giving people rapé, which is like this powdery substance that gets blown up the nostrils one at a time and isn't the most pleasant experience I've ever had. Choose not to do that again, but it can ground you and it can pull you out of loops.
Mm.
So it's really beautiful. And then, you know, come Sunday morning, it's like we do cacao ceremonies and kind of get in touch with the love from that plant medicine, which I'm telling you, chocolate, oh, like it doesn't give you an altered state, but I did have a beautiful moment where it like all came together and it clicked, and I realized, wow, I love chocolate because it really does fill me up with pleasure and love. And right, that's the heart of the cacao is love. So it was a really profound experience from that, and I cried, and I just felt all this warmth and love within me. And then this integration, which is really important. I think when you go through these experiences and you see these things, that the universe, you know, takes you beyond other dimensions, and you see your soul, it's really about integrating, like, because it doesn't just end in the ceremony, especially with ayahuasca and stuff. Like, it could be weeks after you're getting messages and visions in your dreams, or if you do smoke, right, marijuana, it can instantly. I had a really crazy experience, where I was just, I smoked a little bit before I was gonna, you know, kind of leave the house and start my day. And I got in my car and I had a massive like panic attack. And I never have panic attacks. And it was just because I started thinking about something. So in my mind, I started doing the shadow work and self reflection. And it just brought me into like an altered state. And I had to turn around and like go right back home, because I was really like freaked out. Um,
Yes.
so it's definitely about setting and having intentions, having a safe place, knowing how to like keep the energy cleansed so that you're not attaching, you know, onto other people's darker energies or putting out your own things that can be more harmful. Um, because we do have lower vibrational, right? Things that are considered demons or angels of higher frequencies. So you can kind of, you know, collide with those energies. So safety is really, really important, and then integration of the experiences.
Mm. I like that. I like that it's about, being safe. So I think for like listeners out there that they're like, maybe they've never been through ceremony, right? Or they've taken, maybe never taken anything, but are considering taking, some of these psychedelics or any kind of ceremony, that you have people around you that are there to help you through the process. I think that's so important.
Yeah,
I can tell you that, like, for me, I'm very, very sensitive to just things, period, in general. I know that I've done shrooms a couple times. Those are really good. I do really well with that. And I haven't done it, like I said, a lot. I've done it a couple of times. Um, and I've had good experiences with it. I was in a good environment, and that's another thing. You have to be very careful about the environment because,
yeah,
if you are going on a bad trip, and some people can, you wanna have people there that can help you through the process of that, because holy shit, if you're pulling up the dark stuff in your mind, sometimes that's just it's scary. It
yeah,
freaks you out, you know what I mean? And it's hard to get out of. And it's weird, right? And it does, you
Yeah.
don't even know what it's gonna be, right? Like what the panic's gonna be or what's gonna be going on in your mind. But then there's these beautiful, things that you can go through as well, and that's kind of like
Mm.
the milk and honey, right?
Yeah.
It's like that they call it the golden milk, right? You're looking for that state where you can kinda connect to something greater than you, something that's beyond our own understanding, and reconnect into the beauty of life, and it's almost like it's like magic. It's like you
Yeah.
see the magic beyond the veil, which is kinda
Yeah.
cool. But if you do have these, like, heavier energies that are sort of pulling you in, you may not get to that space until you're able to address those, like, the subconscious or the shadow that might be surfacing within you. So it's always good to have environment and people around you. So if you're thinking about doing ceremony, for the listeners, I highly recommend that you find a group of individuals that are gonna hold you in a place and cuddle you through if you've never done it before. And that goes for anything. It would be
Mm.
ayahuasca, shrooms, peyote. I'm trying to think of other, if I don't know, DMT's one.
Mm.
But there are some other, what other ceremonial things do they do? Do you know of any other plant medicine they use?
Well, San Pedro, like I have a San Pedro retreat coming up.
Sure.
Not this weekend, but the following weekend. And I've done that twice this summer. That's
Hmm.
beautiful. It's kind of like peyote because it's a cactus.
Uh-huh.
And it's a lot longer of a journey.
Uh-huh.
It's maybe like 8 or 10 hours of a day.
Oh wow.
And it's yeah, and it's much it's so it connects you. Like you just feel grounded and present in your body and you feel really connected to earth and like all the
Mm-hmm.
people around you and it's a beautiful experience and it kind of comes in these little subtle waves. And so the second time I did it and then hours into it took like a small dose of mushrooms
Mm-hmm.
um, and
Mm-hmm.
that together I had pulled cards on it because it was kind of an experimental thing
Uh-huh.
we were doing,
Mm-hmm.
and I pulled the tarot cards on it and I was like, okay, what is San Pedro and shrooms? Like, what is this energy? And out came flying the emperor. And
Oh.
I was just like, I love it. This is beautiful. And it worked really nice together. Like the shrooms, I feel is very fast and intense because they have very fast life cycles, right? So for me, I'm always on this loop with shrooms.
Mhm.
Um, and it drives me crazy because then in my waking, like real life, when I'm not on medicines, I can really feel those cycles and it's like, here we go again. I'm just, on this hamster wheel trying to do
Uh-huh.
life.
Uh-huh.
Um, so it's like, so now I've done it so much. It's almost like this madness that
Oh, no.
emerges that takes me on the loop. But yeah, San Pedro is just beautiful. I haven't tried peyote. Um, but I feel like that's the masculine part of it, where the ayahuasca is like feminine. So for me, it was a nice, beautiful balance to have both energies of these plants.
Okay.
Yeah. I know there's so many different ones because each country, like you said, Africa, I know, I remember hearing names of certain plants, but I can't remember them now. And even DMT, there's like certain categories. So yeah, it's pretty amazing. And going back to the ritual part of it, like that's where we're coming into, I think, as a collective, right? These things are getting legalized state by state slowly, and it's starting to get incorporated where psychologists, right, therapists are able to facilitate in that environment and I totally think like, hey, that will definitely work for certain people, absolutely. But for me, I really want to explore like the ancient, more indigenous part where it's community, where it's coming together, where it's not like inside an office building and I'm just laying on a bed, with headphones while some doctor watches me for 6 hours. It's really about that, that safety and ritual and community. And I feel like that's our indigenous kind of roots that we're honoring and celebrating, but modernizing in our own way of passage, if that makes sense.
Absolutely makes sense. I think, you know, someone once said that we created 4 walls like a casket, right? Like, I don't wanna be so, like, even our structures, right, are just very, like, um, if they will, death culture or whatever they say, but it's being in an controlled environment to do something that's not supposed to be controlled. You know what I mean? Maybe monitored is a better word, like, you have are facilitated, not even monitored, maybe facilitated environment rather than a monitored and clinical environment because it can alter also the experience of your altered state of consciousness and where you go, right? Because
Mm,
think about it, just for me, when I did shrooms, my connection to trees was beyond measure. Like I can feel the tree talking to me. I could feel the essence and vibration of trees. And my love for trees just exploded right in that moment. It was like,
mm,
whoa. But in a clinical sense, what is there? Everything's it's inanimate objects usually that are around you, right? And so it's like, where is the life, right? That breeds that connection for you when you're in these states, because that's what's going to calm you down. I did something really. It's crazy because marijuana for me can put me in a state, but it's usually like I have bad trips with marijuana, which is not. It is for me. And I realize it's weird because you pull out and extract these deeper parts of yourself that you had no idea it existed. Kind of a
mm,
strange thing. But what connected me back in, because I was at my friend's house and I did this really dumb thing, right? I was like, hey, I'm like acting like I'm young again. I'm going to eat this edible. It was just an edible. It wasn't even a lot. It was just it would be a microdose for people. But this is how sensitive I am, right? So it's New Year's and I'm thinking, I'm gonna do this and it's gonna be great and I'm gonna feel good. And I did it and I start to trip out. And I get paranoid, panic, kind of like the panic you were talking about.
mm.
Thank heavens for my friend who's like the most kind, beautiful soul ever. Like just I could just see her beauty. And she was just like, I called my sister panicking, and she told me, "Well, do CBD." And that's another thing for listeners I wanna say, there's always something to counter, and you should always know what's there to help you counter it if it's too much, right? There's things that can, um, heighten your experience, and there's things that can bring you down. So I called my sister freaking out, panicking, because my friend was like, "Well, I'll make you tea." My sister's like, "Do not give her tea, that's gonna heighten her her experience. Give her CBD. Do you have any CBD?" So CBD is the part of the plant that will help you to neutralize the experience, right, of the cannabis or, of the experience. So I took some, but of course it wasn't helping me as much as it should have. But I started to panic and my friend was like trying to connect me into things, such a beautiful soul. She's like, just blow out the candles the way you were doing in Tai Chi and show me what you're doing. But it wasn't until we left the house and we were out in nature that I was able to calm myself down. I was able to just be with the plants. Like, I didn't
Yeah,
wanna be around humans. I think
yeah.
humans were where I was feeling that anxiety, where I was like, I could just talk to the plants, and they're good. They're happy, and they're helping me process. So
Right.
I am, like, by myself, because we went to this outdoor kinda party, and I was like, "You guys be go people while I plant. I'm gonna go talk to the plants. I'll be back." Um, and it did give me a sense of calming, but it also helped me to extract what the paranoia was. And it was kind of trippy. It was the fact that I have this fear of ignorance. Like, I think that's my greatest fear is being ignorant because as soon as I am in an altered state with marijuana, I can't construct sentences, like, my speech goes away, and I can't
Ah,
have a conversation with the person, and I fear that I'm gonna sound stupid, and then that gives me anxiety. And I'm
yeah.
like, "They're gonna think I'm dumb, like, it's gonna be revealed that I'm this dumb idiot," right? So it's like, "Whoa," like and then I started saying, "Oh my god," like, that's my fear, that's my greatest fear. It's not death, it's that I'm gonna be ignorant and not know, and I'm just gonna be an idiot, right? Like,
Mm.
crazy, right? Like, whoa, that was kinda deep for me because think about self-talk and how we feel about ourselves, right? So that extracted some really deep trauma that, maybe I'm not good enough or whatever it is, and that's the state that it put me in. But I extracted that information and thought, "Wow, you know, crazy." If I ever did, let's say I was in a situation where, I don't know, I ate an edible by accident and I go into this state, now I know that I don't need to talk to people, that I should probably just go be with nature and my thoughts and be away from people. So,
Yeah.
understanding the environment, and I think it's again, for the listeners, there's so many ways that you could do it, but you've gotta be really, 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 really careful about who you're with, what environment that you're cultivating, and the people that are there to support you. I always say do it in nature. In a clinical sense, you could totally do it, but I totally agree with you. Doing it in a clinical situation is not gonna it's not I don't think it's gonna help. I think you need to like, if you think about our ancestors, they were outside, they were walking on the ground, they were
Mm.
grounding and they were drumming, they were
Fires and drumming, yeah.
fires and the elements were with them, and and that's kind of what it is because it does reconnect us into kind of Gaia. It connects us
Yep.
into, if you're rooting yourself, right? It can make us remember how much
Mhm.
we get to love this planet and how much it loves us back, you know, or it can take us into a whole other dimension
Yeah.
beyond
Yeah.
beyond this narrative. But I don't think in a house that's going to happen, or in an environment that's not connected to the planet and the earth and the cosmos, right?
Mhm.
So, but just I mean that that situation was so it was crazy, but I learned a lot, right? And I think that that's the part of the ceremony as well, is that you should walk out understanding these deeper parts of yourself, and then
Mhm.
how to maneuver through them and how to heal those parts that are not healed within you. And that's the ceremonial part. What's internally happening inside of you that's maybe stopping you from realizing your true potential? Because those are the blocks, right? Because our potential is like beyond our own understanding. Our human potential, we have so much potential that's been stifled or hindered or stopped from being realized,
Right,
in
the golden shadow.
uh yes, and it's heavy.
Yeah.
It's heavy, but when you're in the right environment, using these tools, it's amazing how much you realize about how powerful you are as a human being, how much, connection we have to something just greater, and that
Yeah.
it's there for us to help us realize ourselves in this way. It's just it's phenomenal. So
Yeah.
tell me in your experience of doing your ceremonies and stuff like that, like, what's, like, the greatest recognition you had with you in connection to the cosmos, like,
Oh my
and
god, so many
spirit
beautiful.
yeah, yeah,
Oh, um, well, I would say there's 2 that really stick out from the past year. So, New Year's Eve, we did a retreat, and, like, obviously, we've talked about twin flames and all of that and stuff, and so, mine kind of would show me, like, the twin flame aspect of myself and my journey, and I remember it took me outside of my body, um, and into the cosmos, right? And it was again this loop. It was like a figure eight loop, and I remember doing a painting afterwards that kind of symbolized it. But I felt like I was just going through this loop of energy, and it was showing me some of like the soul contracts, and it
mhm,
was showing me the other, like the masculine, right, my the twin, um, and it showed how like I've known this is my last lifetime on earth. I've reached, states of enlightenment and all of the things. I've done a lot. Like I don't need to come back here, and I'm not. And so my soul is going to be able to evolve and kind of go on. And so in that instance, I was journaling things in my notebook because I do like to journal while I'm on the medicine and kind of have this like, two-way conversation. And I had all this sadness around me because I was kind of being told it was, being validated that this was your last lifetime. And I was working through that. And so it was like the sadness of the beauty of earth and how much I loved it and not, knowing like I'm not gonna have that again or whatnot. And then the medicine showed me that as twin flames and coming into this union, right, which we've talked about in other episodes, that I've now kind of accomplished like what I needed to, what I set out to. And so because of that, my soul is the creator of universes, multiverses or
Mm.
whatever. And so we kind of energetically come back together, and it's almost like this big bang theory, right, of everything kind of like just bursting into being.
Yes.
And like, okay, so this is my galaxy, like this is my dimension or whatever, however it works. It's like this is what I'm creating for a solar system. And getting to choose then like the life that I want to live, like where do I want, what planet do I want to call home, and how do I actually want to experience life. So that was so profound. And then a few months later, right after my birthday in March, I had um I had a cool birthday week, and there was some synchronicities there along with the twin flame stuff and just chakras kind of being activated. And so by that weekend, I remember just laying on the mat, and I can only describe it as like an elevator, right? When you're kind of going up, to the penthouse, and then you kind of just go all the way back down to the lobby. And it was going up like these elevated states of consciousness, all the way up to my highest, like I am, the soul.
Mm.
And it was just this, again, this conversation and things being revealed, and it was like, this is the path and this is what you're doing, and like it to be true. And it was just this sense of connection and embodiment, that it was just so far beyond the ego, right? And how the ego just thinks life is going to unfold, and it was like, no, it was this massive amount of insight and guidance, and it was just going up and down this elevator of connection.
I like
uh,
that, up to the penthouse.
right, where the highest self is waiting. And so I just kept dropping back down into me and then going back up, and yeah, it was so profound and cool.
It's awesome. Yeah, it's cool. I've reached altered. So another thing, just for listeners, like again, you don't need to do any kind of um outside medicine or anything to reach these states. I mean, I personally am so sensitive, and I have to be careful. I just want to say another thing actually, because I think as people listen to this, and who knows how many people are going to listen to this, or people who have never maybe done this stuff. I do want to say, caution, right? With caution, that altered states of consciousness can be very addicting. And
Yes, it's
and
hard to come back from that.
it is. And so it's always good to make sure that you know how to ground yourself, because
Mhm.
um we're here to do the work. Like, I have a friend, she slaps me back into reality because I naturally will go into those states. That's where I feel comfortable, where she's like, you're here on earth, you have this purpose, you need to like ground yourself. So I always say, make sure that you're grounding yourself in, like, you're growing roots here so that you're not flying away. And
Yeah.
then, because what could happen is there's a fine line between these altered states and then actually losing your mind, for sure. So, and I've seen it happen to a lot of people. And you definitely don't want to do that. And that's where people get a little like, there's a lot of fear around it, right? Because they're like,
Mm.
oh, I don't want to lose my. You won't lose your mind if you have the grounding practices. So I always say, make sure you have a counter. Make sure that you're in a safe environment. Make sure that you understand what's going to offset the experience, and make sure that you have practices that can truly ground you right back into the to earth, right? Or that you have friends. Like, I have people I go to when I'm too connected into these altered states, because you can lose your mind. I've felt it before, where I'm like, I'm gonna lose my mind if I don't ground myself right now.
Yeah.
So, and I've reached these states, and one of the times that I've experienced, the I am, which was time. I was really working with time. And for individuals that are really in the work and trying to understand time to me, at least as a spiritual alchemist, is the golden, it is the elixir. It is the most important thing to understand how to maneuver. If you can maneuver your time, if you can learn how to create time and to and that's kind of what the alchemists were looking for, right? The elixir to immortality, the elixir to
Yeah.
but time itself is an interesting concept, right? Even in our own state of being as humans, like what we've tried to understand about time and what it means. And it's relative, right? And so all these things we can just go on a tangent for the from the scientific perspective because they don't even really understand how time could be relative. Well, I mean, they kind of do. They have their calculations, but with time itself, like I was on the I was the content watching time unfold, but it was unfolding out of me. And every character, every person that showed up was like instantaneous. And it's like I understood every character that was showing up. And I called it character because at the time I felt like I was behind the veil, beyond the observer and the content. Like I was holding the space for what was emerging. I mean, it was just, and it's the words don't even describe, and you know this, Pam, when
Yeah,
you're in
it's
a
hard to
state like that.
articulate.
Exactly, because it's not, there are no words. And I think
Yeah.
that's the thing is that we have to try to create what the words are because the experience is very, very different than what we can articulate in words, right?
Mm.
But I did a drawing and a diagram of kind of what I was experiencing, and I almost thought I was gonna get caught on the other side, because when and it was weird because I felt like I was doing almost a rebirth into the ego, which was scary as hell. Probably one of the scariest processes I went through was coming back in. I didn't
Yeah.
wanna come back in.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't blame you. Can't
But
say I
coming
blame you.
back was damn scary, right? Because it's
Mm.
like, "Oh my god, I'm going back." And then I started to panic, right? So coming back that's why I said you've gotta understand how to reground because I thought I was gonna get lost. I couldn't
Yeah.
find my way back almost. But in that space, it was so beautiful, and there was no I've never been at the height like that, but I was conscious. I was aware of what was happening in front of me, and I was the creator of all that was arising or
Yeah.
emerging. It was just a pretty powerful place, and that's just one state. There's many altered states of consciousness. So you have near death experiences that are, that take you on a whole other realm, right? They can take you into what it's like to be on the other side of the veil. Um, you can have those experiences even in your waking state. People
Yeah.
separate from their body and they can see their body. There's astroplaning, right? Like all these different types of experiences that people have. So it's not just like one thing. There's all these different things that occur. And another was meditation. So meditation's a
Mhm.
powerful thing too when you're doing it enough. And I would at the time was meditating all the time.
Yeah.
And what happened with me was similar to you, which is kind of crazy. And maybe this is part of the twin flame scenario. No, I'm serious because
Yeah. Yeah, I
I'm
wouldn't
like,
be
wow.
surprised.
Yeah, exactly, because what you said is what happened to me. I know that this is my last time here, and I've known that forever. I know it's
Yeah.
a one and done. I know, first of all, that I've never been to this planet, and that I came here for a purpose, right? Some people have past life experiences here, and
Yeah.
that's very real. I've never been here. And I think I always tell people I'm alien to this planet, and that's probably why it's such a mystery to me. That's probably why I'm like, ooh, and I still at my age can still look at a flower with great mystery like I just seen it for the first time, right? Because really it's I've never been here, right? My soul's never cycled through this place and it's not coming back. That I
Yeah.
do know of myself. And in that meditation that I was doing, it was so strange because all of a sudden I felt this wave and I saw my planet that I came from. And all I saw was it being destroyed. And then I was young, I was little, right? And it was a planet that had we were like humanoid looking, right? Um, but but more elf-like. I don't know how to explain it. Anyway, that's in my meditation, this is what I was seeing, right? And I got pulled away. And it was because it was almost like my parents there, right, on that planet were like, "You have to go." Like, nothing was left. Everything on my planet was demolished and destroyed, completely wiped out, right? And here I am getting pulled in and pulled into where? To Earth. And I couldn't stop crying. I mean, I felt this big, huge sense of loss. And
Mm,
and this wave, and I just cried and cried and cried and cried and cried. So what I did is hypnotherapy. And that's another thing you guys can do if you're looking for something that's a little less
intense.
intrusive, intense, and a little intrusive. I can say that sometimes it's intrusive when you take plant medicine. It just is like, "I'm coming for you, and you can't I don't care what you want."
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
but yeah. But hypnotherapy is another way that you can reach that, and I decided one day to do hypnotherapy, didn't realize I was reconnect to my home planet, which is Chimera, and so but I did, I went back in and kinda saw what happened, right? She kinda took me back, saw how it was destroyed, and what I realized is that there was a level beyond that, that there was something bigger than that, and it was the creator of the planet, which was me, right? And so, like,
Mm,
it's kind of funny what you said, like, creator of universes. The thing is that all of us are.
yeah.
Right? Yeah. But we just don't realize it. Some people, I don't know what their soul journey is, right? It might have a different perfect purpose or intention, but maybe this is part of the twin flame thing, which is kind of interesting that you say that you realize that you're creator of these planets and universes and all this kind of thing, and that you're kind of out. So I realized like I created chimera, right? The which I call Kamala, right? My
Mm,
stellar being, or this being beyond the being. Was manifesting out this and projecting out these planets. And then that didn't work, got destroyed. Well, then who destroyed it? Well, I did. I created it, I destroyed it. It's almost like Kali, right?
you're right, that's what I was thinking. The goddess Kali, creator and destroyer. And that's the
And
feminine energy. That's what we do, like, as a universe. Absolutely.
so and then but understanding that big scenario is like, oh, creator destroyer, like I created it and I'm the one who destroyed it. But
Yeah.
that sense of loss to that home planet where I was happy, right? Um and understanding that, which was pretty powerful. And now my journey, which makes a lot of sense, is here, and my purpose is to say, "Hey, why are we destroying this planet?" Like, I've already gone through that, and it's not fun, trust me. You know what I mean? Like, my
Right.
soul has been there. We have this beautiful place, and, who knows what's gonna happen, right? With all the things that are going on, I know we weren't talking about it, but, with all the bombings and all the things that are happening right now, all of like World War III is almost about to happen, you know what I mean? All these crazy things,
Mm.
and all I can think about is Chimera and how that ended, and how there's this great sense of loss. There's a movie too that kinda goes over that, maybe the feeling, and I can't think of the name of it at this point. I always like to point to movies because it kinda gives kind of the message. Ender, um, Ender? I think it's called Ender, and I think so. Ender Game or something, Ender's Game or something like that, but you watch the movie, um and I'm kinda gonna give it to you, but this genius kid, is there to, like, they have all these smart kids that are working with higher intelligence or other beings or alien beings and stuff like that, but they use video games to train them on how to do, like, interstellar warfare, and I don't know, all this crazy stuff, right?
Mm.
And this one kid is gonna be the one who kind of maybe saves, the planet, and there's this, alien race that's trying to take over many planets and stuff like that. Well, he thinks he's doing this video game, to try to do, strategic planning for warfare, like, what would we do if they were attacked? And they give him these scenarios, and they're like, "You can't fail. If you fail, that's it," right? So they're like, "This is your final test to see if you're ready to actually lead our army," and he's a young kid, and again, using video games. So he thinks he's doing this video game, and his only hope is to just blow the whole planet up.
Mm.
And he doesn't realize that this isn't the video game, this is a real thing. So he pushes it, he says, yeah, he aims it, he blows it up, and he's like, "Yay, we won." But he doesn't realize that he actually this wasn't like he couldn't go back.
Yeah.
That was and the sense of loss to see this beautiful, magnificent thing explode was like everybody, all of the people, because they all didn't realize that this was just a video. They just thought it was the video game that they were just practicing. All of them just were like, "What did we do?
Yeah.
What did we do?" You know what I mean? And it's like the point of no return where it was just very, very sad, right? And they just were like, "Whoa." And so, but again, understanding that that's what you know, we're potentially doing. But I think if people were to connect to these dates and recognize and connect, and like again, there's many different ways to connect, right?
Mhm.
Um, I have this great love for this planet and its beauty because I know what it's like to have lost an entire planet. So for me, it's very sad. It hurts me to my core to see that we even have the capability of annihilating, if like pushing a button and making this
Yeah.
planet barren when it holds so much life, you know what I mean? It's like, "Whoa." Now the planet will go on, so it doesn't have to be just this sad thing, and that's part of it. There's the destroyer and the creator, right? New things will be created even though but to watch an ending of something so magnificent, whoa, crazy. And I
Yeah.
think that altered states of consciousness, I think the fact that we're starting to allow people to use not that they weren't doing it anyway. Even if it was illegal, people were still doing it. They're like, "We're still having our ceremony." This is what you're talking about. But it's better because we can be out in the open about it, and
Yeah.
and it opens up our hearts and minds to it. But the other altered states of consciousness, like fungi, right? Like when you're eating shroom psilocybin, that really can connect you to the planet and remind you of her beauty, right? Remind
Absolutely.
you, and then that's why it's important to do these things, to remind us that we're not separate from this beautiful ecosystem
Yeah.
that's here for us, right? And then doing other altered states of consciousness to see what happens when we don't connect in with the things that nurture us here on this planet. So for me, that was kind of like my whole roundabout. So it's like, well, how can I contribute back to humanity in a way that honors all of that and supports life and even human life to continue on for longer than we might we might give ourselves because we're what I mean. It's like human
Yeah.
species. I don't know. We might we might annihilate our own self, which is not good. I don't think.
Our own
I
worst
think
enemy.
I know it's crazy. It's so crazy. But that was kind of my experience. And I've had more experiences, but those are the most profound for me
Oh, yeah.
with doing it. But again, the destroyer, the creator of these
Mm.
bigger things. And I don't know, maybe that's a twin flame thing. Maybe those are questions we ask other twin flame individuals, the ones that are doing the deep work. It's true. It's like, do you feel like
Yeah.
you're the creator and destroyer of planets and and the cosmos? Is that
Right.
like a thing for twin flames?
Oh, goodness. No, but I think you're right, 'cause I mean, when I first started meditating, so before plant medicine even really became part of my path, and I remember I would, I have a glass, like screen door type thing, so I'd open up the regular door and then just kinda sit in the doorway of the sun, I just love how, like, the glass will intensify that. And so just, like, I just close my eyes and kinda let it hit my 3rd eye and take it in, and I can remember having altered states and kind of having visions of past lives. So for me, like it would be images and visions of like ancient Egyptian time periods and knowing like, okay, I was there and I had a role. And so it is cool how like it's that ancient remembering of the soul, right? That really in these states is able to emerge and come online. And then you have the ego who's trying to analyze and observe it all and make logical sense of it. But it was very addicting. I would have a hard time trying to be grounded afterwards. And of course, I don't have earth in my natal chart, so I had to learn even how to ground and how to navigate that kind of elemental energy because I'm just water and fire.
Mhm.
Um, so and then it was like once I started doing plant medicines, there was definitely times after that where it was a struggle to come back and to be present because it was so profound and it was something like I just wanted to be in that energy, right? When you're in this high vibration of love from the universe and this self-awareness, it's amazing experiences that just have a profound impact but can be a struggle to navigate. So yeah, it's definitely
Definitely. What do
definitely a
what
journey.
what do you do to ground yourself? Like, what are some of the things that you do to ground yourself?
um Really writing. I definitely have to write out a lot. Like, I think I have to just dive within to
Mm,
explore the emotions and, like, what I'm feeling that has me, I guess, in that state of being. So I definitely and then nature, right? Like you said, just being outside, just being barefoot and walking or sitting in the grass, connecting with nature, yeah, journaling. Um you think even just like crystals and stones and having candles, so having, those kind of altar, ceremonial pieces that I have like in my room and around me or on my being, right? Definitely having like tourmaline, um, in my pockets to feel grounded. Um, so it's different, definitely different practices. And then breath work. I think breath work's a huge one that I've been slowly learning and getting better at and more intentional with. Because that was something in our courses, right? They were teaching us like altered states through, um, gosh, who was it? Groff, Stanislav Groff.
mhm, mhm,
Yeah,
mhm,
doing, like,
mhm.
those kinda techniques and stuff, so it was, like, yeah, trying to find balance and not, like, breathe to the extent where it's, like, setting myself back, but having more of a calming, for the nervous system to, like, relax, and then it's just acceptance, like you said, like, it comes to a point where the ego needs to just accept as much as it wants to escape and it wants to explore, the universe and other states of consciousness. Like we are here for a reason and we did choose a body. And I will definitely say, I did DMT recently at an ayahuasca retreat weekend, and grapes definitely. And we were talking about like having things that will help either decrease or increase.
Uh-huh.
Ayahuasca and grapes will take you take you where you want to go. So I caution that. Um, but on the DMT, like I had never tried it. It was something I've heard other people's experiences and I never searched for it. I just kind of again put out that intention if it's meant for me, like the universe will align it and it will be in a safe space and I don't have to worry about it. So that's what happened. And I was told like, okay, you're gonna be pulled into like a gateway. Just kind of relax, just breathe. It's only a few minutes. The only way out is through. You just have to go through it. And instantly, like, because you take like maybe 3 hits off of, the pipe. and by the third hit, like, someone else is doing it for you because you can't hold it anymore. You're already, like, halfway, in between realms. And, my body the only way I can describe it is for people who have seen the Marvel movies of, Infinity War. At
Mhm.
the end when Thanos, is able to snap his fingers and wipe out half of humanity, they all start kinda turning to ash, and just float away. And that's what it felt like. It felt like my body was just slowly disintegrating back into air. And at the end of it, that's all that I had was my breath. I had this consciousness of like the pineal gland attached to the breath. And I was just floating. And as soon as like the gateway appeared, all that was repeating was welcome to the universe, welcome to the universe. And as I made my way through that gateway tunnel, I came boom front and center with my I am and had a beautiful, I felt all the love and just was in that place. Um and so since then, because it hasn't been like 6 weeks yet, I have not been the same. Like, I just like, you can't experience that being nothing but the elements of, the universe and then coming back into a physical body. I have appreciated, my human essence way more than I ever have in my 40 years of life. Um and I don't fear death. Like, I just don't fear death because I know the minute like my body gives its last heartbeat and its last breath, that consciousness is just going to shift, and I'm already like alive outside of my body. I'm already connected with the primordial womb of consciousness that I was able to connect to in that state. So there's no fear. There's just no fear of death. And like you said, it's now about this elixir of life and time. What am I going to do and create with the time that I'm here? How am I going to give back and help other people heal and like be educated on these topics and evolve and grow and do their work, because I'm just this guide and I'm doing, my own energy work for the planet. We were talking about this yesterday with the collective shadow, and here we are transmuting, right? Part of that alchemist role, just
Mhm.
transmuting the collective energy and the ancestral energy. Um so it's just such a profound experience, and you really learn so much about not only your ego and your fears and your strengths and your weaknesses and your flaws and like your beauty, but it's seeing the true essence of your soul and the consciousness of the universe and all of its mystery and all of its glory, and it's so profound.
Mhm. It is, it is, and it's a lot for some people too. So you have
Yeah.
to be ready, um, because sometimes it's too much for some individuals, right?
Yeah.
And making sure, I think for individuals that might be interested, if you've never done anything, I would say start with something very, very light, like meditation. Try
Mm,
that, doing that, right? Um, meditate, 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 and then, eventually you'll hit that point where you get into this altered state. So meditation is a very soft, gentle way to start.
mm.
Um,
And I just
breath
want to say on that, yeah, I know you're going into breath work really quick though, because I see a lot of people when I do my oracle readings with the public, and I have a lot of people when those cards come up that you need stillness, you need meditation, and the problem is people I think don't quite fully grasp the concept of meditation. They think they have to sit there in perfect stillness and not have any thoughts. And it's like, no, it's a muscle, and you're strengthening it. The more that you can notice and not engage in your thoughts, and you're able to, like, you know what I mean, let it just flow by you rather than feeding into like the worry, the chaos, the fantasy, you strengthen that. And then in those in between spaces, like, you're able to elevate yourself to an altered state based on exactly like the breath work, right? Techniques that you're then focusing on.
Mhm, mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I would say start there. Start with the meditation, then, breath work is part of that, or you can do breath work separately. I did Kundalini practice for a long time with
Yeah,
somebody as
it's
well.
beautiful.
That's not only gets you into altered states, it makes your body feel phenomenal when you keep doing it. It's like I
Yeah,
never felt better. I felt my whole body talking to me, thank you, my cells." Anyway, there's that to start very gentle. You can do hypnotherapy, which is like maybe a next step up, right?
mm.
Where you can work with a hypnotherapist and they can help you try to tap into drumming ceremonies. Good to try. Those are all ways of tapping into altered states without necessarily having to do any kind of, assisted support, right?
Yeah,
And they're gentle, and I'd say start there. But then I think, if we're looking at it, I think shrooms would be the natural next step because they're very light, gentle as well. Mushrooms are our friends, they they're the
yeah,
consciousness planet. They are, beautiful things. I wouldn't take a lot. I would just take a little just to see where you're good at your kind of what dosage would be good for you, and then maybe scale up from there. But
yeah,
always making sure that you have, that how to ground yourself. I think that's, it's great to talk about altered states. Everybody wants to get there. There's a lot of people who are like, I want to, but the reality is that you may not be prepared for what you're about to face. You don't know what's gonna show up sometimes because you may not be ready to face the shadow that might show up in those altered states. And, people call it a bad trip. It's not a bad trip. It's your shadow
yeah,
showing something. But if you don't have
exactly.
people to help you facilitate it, if you don't have, the proper ceremonies to ground you, or if you don't have the counter things that can counter it or pull you back into, I
Yeah,
would say don't do it right away because you can really put yourself in a state where you get lost forever. So you've gotta make sure it's in an environment where people can help you, and have been through it and are there to support you. I also say see your therapist
yeah,
or your coach before you even decide to do this and make sure that you're ready to face the shadows that might show up, right? That you
mm,
might be, concerned about because again, who knows, like, some people can see things that they you can never return back from it, basically,
absolutely.
and you can never not see what you saw.
Yeah,
So, be careful, be cautious, but when you are there, it's the most beautiful experience you've ever had in your life, and it could tap you into your purpose for life as well. So, it can help you
absolutely.
find your purpose.
And
That's all I have
and
to say. Go ahead.
yeah. No, I'm just oh my gosh, so many things, right? I would say definitely like I feel like it's part of initiation, where like the universe, your soul, whatever, your hero's journey, that shamanic kind of archetype, like of initiation, it will call to you. If you are meant for like certain medicines, they will call to you. That's how my whole ayahuasca journey really began, back in 2018, when I went to Peru. Um, so I would just say like honor and listen to that rather than trying to force it just because like, oh, I think it's a cool experience and I heard about it, I mean, and with that even like there are certain like with ayahuasca, there's definitely like a dieta, like so you have to, cleanse if you're on medications, like there's a lot of health risk, not only for the mental health but for the body's physical health. So definitely, doctors, and I know for Peru, like you had to have doctors approval. They had like a whole sheet that you had to take and whatnot and get filled out and then bring with you. Um, and then I know it's popping up in the States because the second time I did ayahuasca was in the United States, which luckily enough led me to the community that I found and that I've been a part of now for the past year. But that retreat space was not a good space. They were more of a cash cow machine, there'd be like 30 people in there. So I would definitely say do your research. Definitely, you know what I mean? Protect yourself, but look into it and just do the research on the medicines and what it's asking of you and your body. And then just knowing again the set and the setting and the environment, all of these places that are popping up, it's not per se for the person healing, it's more for that person that just wants to benefit and make thousands and thousands of dollars. So you really need to listen to your own intuition as you are finding, you know, these resorts or these retreats and trying to navigate that realm. Um, because there's a lot to it that can be harmful for people.
Yeah, I thank you for sharing that and
Yeah.
saying that as well. So
Yeah.
yeah, you've got to know the people that are trying to just know. Just do your research and homework before you go out and just, doing it. I personally am not about recreational use of it. I'm not against people doing it if they want. That's their life. But I personally find it as a sacred thing. It's a very sacred
Absolutely.
thing. And when, people do it recreational, they take out the ritual and the meaning behind why our ancestors were using this stuff to begin with, which was for ceremony, right? And having a community come together for a purpose, right? There was an intention behind it. Um, it's totally fine. Don't get me wrong. If that's your thing, is just to go out with friends and just, hey, I'm going to try this to see. You can still have a good experience. Not saying you can't. You might have a bad trip. We never know, right? But I always say do it in those environments because it's a sacred thing. And you definitely, if you are someone who goes on a bad trip, at least have somebody there to guide you through the process so that don't feel like you're alone
Mm,
in that journey. Um, but to me, it's a sacred thing.
absolutely.
And for me, I like what you said about, letting the plant come to you and all that kind of stuff. If it's calling to you, it'll happen. I had wanted to do ayahuasca for a while, but it's never presented itself to me, and I'm like, "There's a reason why,"
Yeah,
and I know that, and so I don't actively go out to seek it. It'll happen when it's supposed to happen, if it's supposed to happen. If I
absolutely.
could reach altered states of consciousness without it, what do I need it for? You know what I mean? And I think that's kind of the message that I get.
Mm.
I already have a high sense, uh, sensitivity to these states. And I could already put myself in those states of altered states of consciousness without any kind of
Yeah,
assisted support. So, I think the medicine is saying it might be overly, like, way too much for you, right? Because I'm a sensitive person. But if it does present itself and the time does come, because it's easy. I've never, even with you, I've never asked you, Pam, like, hey, can I, if ceremony shows up for me within your group, then it shows up. You know what I
yeah,
mean? But I'm not gonna force the like, hey, can I, and try to insert myself into that
right.
community. It's not gonna happen that way. And because I'm listening to the universe telling me, when if your time comes, it will.
Yeah,
If not, you don't need
right.
it. You
Exactly, and you have
don't.
a space to go to when it does.
Yeah, and it's like you don't need it. Like, I don't need it at this point. And to be honest, I think people need to realize sometimes they want to be in that state. No, sometimes you're being asked to be here on the planet and do
Right.
your work here. And I'm saying that for myself because right now I'm needed here
Yeah,
in this state of mind to get the work done, to be fully present to this 3D world because I've had my altered states. I've gotten my downloads. I know what I'm supposed to be doing. So I need to be present in this moment here,
yeah,
planet.
absolutely. That's
And
beautiful.
so yeah, and so, you know, if I need to go into those places, I'll know when, and
Mhm.
it'll call, right? So it's a very different scenario. So I think when you get to that point, you'll understand for yourself.
Yeah,
But yeah, I believe that. I believe that when the time is right for individuals, they will, and to be very careful of commercial because sometimes the medicine is not made in the traditional way it's supposed to either. People
yeah,
cut corners, they do, you know what
yep,
I mean? You could
yep,
maybe go on a bad trip because it was done incorrectly or
absolutely.
You just gotta be careful. You just gotta be careful. So know what's going on, know
Yeah.
where you're doing your stuff, know who's monitoring the ceremony, and see if they're actually doing a ceremony that is there to support, right, you guys, into being able to experience these states in a safe environment.
Mm.
So there you have it. Pam, you wanna say anything else before we exit out of this beautiful podcast?
Um, no, I was just thinking it's funny because like I went into the medicine, right, for my own healing, my own initiation, my own kind of myth story. And then it all kind of transformed over this year. And in this summer, like I switched roles and I wasn't going there for my own healing anymore. I was going there to hold space and to be like right support staff in a sense, to hold space for the people that were going there on the mats. And that's so beautiful to be able to come full journey on that and then to be like a team player almost with the medicine to help other
Mhm.
people and it wasn't about me anymore. But you still take a little bit, you still honor the medicine. But then you're there for other people who are really deep diving into the work. And
That's
so
awesome.
it's just beautiful to watch how like your own narratives kind of play out and how this medicine takes you, through your healing, but then evolves you. And it's like now I'm that servant leader and I'm here in a different role with the medicine and like this relationship that we have to serve humanity. So that's beautiful. And then it's all about your integrity and your morals and looking for people that really share in those values.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Help people through their journey, and that's why I said know the people that are
Yeah.
guiding you through it, right? That's a critical part of it.
Absolutely.
I have to be around people that are like, I ever did this, I'm like, "You guys better be prepared because 'cause I'm gonna need all the support." All the support.
Oh, it feels
Um,
good. It feels good to show up for people like that, to be able to just get them water, help them with their puke bucket, or, hug somebody because 'cause they're just crying and need a hug, or it's a beautiful experience for sure.
yeah, and so that's awesome that you're able to help facilitate that, so
Mm,
there you have it, hope you guys have a fantastical day,
yeah.
and we will be on next Tuesday.
Yep. Bye.
Bye.